Chazal tell us that Peischin B'chvod Achsanya, before you speak someplace, you should speak about the place that you are speaking in. I never had the pleasure of being in this Achsanya, but I have had the schus to teach the peiros of this Achsanya. And I realized today that I think more than any other family that I taught in Beis Yaakov, I believe that I had the schus to teach all the Rechnes girls. My first year that I came to Beis Yaakov, Ayala Malka, Sarah Ayala, was in my class the first year, and then it's progressed one after the other till Mindy I had just a couple of years ago. And I can tell you to the mommy that you should have a lot of nachas. And that's a bracha. It's a bracha to have a house that produces such special peiros. And I'd just like to wish you that you should continue to have nachas and continue to see a lot of bracha. And we should dance at the chasana this year, Mitzvah Hashem. And Be'ez Hashem, your house should always be a house that is Malei Chesed, Malei Torah, and Malei only nachas from all of your children and your grandchildren, Ken Yirbu. The great mitzvah that we're speaking about tonight is the mitzvah of Simcha, of how a person achieves a level of happiness in their life. And we would think that Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha, that since that we are holding by the month of Adar, and we have to increase our Simcha, our joy, we would imagine that it's something that should be very palpable in this Chodesh, in this month. And certainly as we're getting ready for Purim and we start looking into the Megillah and the mitzvahs and everything that it says, it should be something that is very obvious and easy for a person to be able to achieve. And yet Chazal tell us that when it begins to discuss the Megillah itself, the Gemara asks the following question: Esther mina Torah minayin. Where is there some kind of a remiss, some kind of a hint in the Torah Kadosh itself that we should know what the essence of what Esther was, but even more so the essence of the entire Megillah and the whole story of Purim and that which took place? And so the Gemara answers famously, Haster Aster Panai, that I will surely hide my face, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in those times when HaKadosh Baruch Hu hide his face, so the concealment is something that somehow in the world of Simcha, in the world of joy, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu conceals himself, that's exactly how a person is supposed to find him. And by finding the Ribono Shel Olam, that is how a person is going to achieve Simcha, going to achieve happiness. Which means, the Gemara is telling us that if you think that you're going to walk down the street and find Simcha, it's not going to happen. If you think that you're going to walk into a room, you're going to walk into a class, you're going to walk into a chasana, and automatically you're going to find Simcha, it's not going to happen. Because this that Esther is Haster Aster Panai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm concealing myself. I'm hiding myself. You can't find me so easily. But if in fact you're going to look, and if in fact you're going to seek, and if you're going to try to find me, so then the effort that you put into finding the Ribono Shel Olam in this world, therein is going to lie the secret to a person finding their tremendous amount of Simcha. The Gemara in Chagiga, which anyone that's learning the Daf Yomi just learned the other day, the Gemara says an amazing idea, and it says that one of the milas, one of the great points of Klal Yisrael, is that Klal Yisrael is an Am HaHester. We are a nation that exists in Hester, where you cannot see clearly what it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing. When you live in a world, when you live a life where HaKadosh Baruch Hu forces a person when he forces a person to look for him and to search for him and to seek him out, says the Gemara, that's the Maila, that is the advantage of being a Yid. When a person has to try to make a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is the way, as we're going to see tonight, that a person is going to achieve Simcha. A man once came to the Chazon Ish, and he was going through many, many tzaras in his life. And he was at Sabrach, and he was a broken person. And he came to the Chazon Ish, and he began pouring out his heart, complaining, Hashem did this, Hashem did that, Hashem did this, Hashem did that. And he wanted the Chazon Ish to explain things to him. So before the Chazon Ish answered him, he pulled out a Gemara, and he said, Rabbi, did you ever learn this Gemara? And he said, yes. He said, you know the Tosfos, one of the commentators, you know the Tosfos? Yes. He says, what's the pshat? What is this Tosfos talking about over here? So the man began to explain to the Chazon Ish, as if the Chazon Ish needed explanation, what the Tosfos was saying on the Gemara. The Chazon Ish asked him a question right away, that can't be the pshat, because you have to answer for this. So the man said, okay, fine, so maybe the pshat is this, and he began giving another pshat. The Chazon Ish said, no, that can't be the pshat either, because if you answer that, there's another question on Tosfos then. And it went back and forth like this for a few minutes, until the man was totally flustered, he had no answer for the Chazon Ish. So the Chazon Ish said to the man, you don't even understand the pshat, the understanding in the Tosfos. You want to understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing what he does in your life. You can't understand a basic word that's written in the Talmud, and you think that you can understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is orchestrating all of the events that are taking place. Impossible. A person never could understand such a thing. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a relationship with each and every one of us that is very hard to achieve, very hard to reach, but the reward is once you get there, and once you find the Ribbono Shel Olam in your life, that is when a person is going to achieve Simcha. That is when they're going to become a happier person. When a person is distant from Hashem, when a person doesn't understand the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when a person wonders why Ribbono Shel Olam, you do such and such a thing to me, it's very hard to be a happy person. But when a person gravitates towards the Ribbono Shel Olam, when a person begins to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in their life, when a person recognizes that the Yad of Hashem, the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is what is guiding them and running the way everywhere that they go, as we know, it's called Megillas Esther. Esther means that Hashem has hidden himself. Megillah is a lashon of Megala, to reveal. The Megillas Esther is to be Megala, is to reveal the Hester, that which is hidden from the Ribbono Shel Olam. If a person would learn the Megillah in the right way, if we would go through Purim in the right way, if we'd understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to say, you will find HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only in the Megillah, not only in the Yom Tiv, but you will begin to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life. How does a person find Hashem? Because this is going to be the key to everybody's Simcha. Again, you can't find Simcha. You're not going to find it on Amazon.com. It might be exciting. Zappos is pretty good. You can just buy as many shoes you want. Just return it again and again. I have cousins who live, my sister-in-law and brother live in Eretz Yisrael. They have a lot of girls. I think the reason that they come to visit us in America is just so they can order shoes on Zappos. And then they come, no, it's not the right size, no, it's not the right color, send it back, send it back, send it back. When you finally get the right shoe, and it fits the foot in the right way, is that Simcha? No, that's just satisfaction that finally, after spending 3 hours online, you finally got a shoe that fits. Simcha is a very deep feeling that is inside of a person's heart, that's inside of a person's soul. And the only way that we could achieve it properly is when a person is attached to the source of all the Simcha of the world. And that's the Ribbono Shel Olam. How does a person do it? What are we going to do to be able to achieve Simcha? In this week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu pushes the envelope as far as he possibly can with the Ribbono Shel Olam. And he says, I want you to show me your ways, Hashem. I'd like to understand why tzaddik v'ralo, why the righteous suffer, why rosha v'toivloi, why the wicked prosper. Show me why you do what you do. Explain to me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how things work. And Hashem's basic answer is, nobody could ever understand my penimius, my essence, v'chai, and live. It's an impossibility. Nobody could understand. But there's one thing that you could understand. And that is that in this world, there is a panim, there is the inner essence of the Ribbono Shel Olam. That belongs to me, not to you. I make decisions because I look at your neshama, I look at your life, I look at where you're going, where you're heading, what your purpose in this world is. And I make many, many, many decisions that you will never fully understand. But when I make those decisions for you, your mission is to respond to them in the best way that you possibly can. Your mission is that if I put you through an isayin in life, if I challenge you, if I make things difficult for you, says the Ribbono Shel Olam, you have to know that every single challenge that I send in your life is for your benefit, not for your detriment. It's to help you to grow, not to put you down. Will we succeed in every challenge? No, impossible. Will we overcome many of them? Yes, we will. When a person overcomes a challenge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts us through in life, what do they achieve? They grow up and up and up in this world. I was recently in Eretz Yisrael, and one of the amazing things that I was able to do, on top of all the amazing things, was that there's an organization called Keren Shvis. It's an organization that Klal Yisrael has, that is helping all the farmers that are keeping Shemitah this year to be able to sustain themselves. Their families, their children, they're not working, the farms are lying fallow, they're sitting and learning Torah this year. How are they going to make a living? So Keren Shvis has asked all the shuls in America to try to partner up with a farm and a farmer and raise at least $30,000 from your shul and be able to support them throughout the year. So I told him, listen, I'm going to Eretz Yisrael. I would love to meet the farmer and I would love to meet the farm that we're supporting. So on my last day that I was in Eretz Yisrael, we finally get word that it works out. The farmer's going to meet us there, and we're driving out to a place called Shiloh. Shiloh is where the Mishkan was, but the only way that you can get to Shiloh is, unbeknownst to us until we actually started the drive, you have to go through the West Bank to get there. As we're driving along the way, we at a certain point realized that, all the names of the cities that we're driving past sound like all different names like that. Doesn't look like Yerushalayim and Bnei Brak anymore. As we're driving down, suddenly we had to rent a car. Suddenly, as we're driving down, what happens? The rent-a-car company calls us and said, were you kidnapped? We said, no, why? What happened? Because you're driving through Arab territory. Is everything okay? Yeah, we're just going to see a farm. It's okay. We're driving along. We're really in not the greatest of neighborhoods. And in Eretz Yisrael, there's a lot of, I think they're called roundabouts or turnabouts. For some reason, the Waze is very hard to follow by these turnabouts. Either you go straight or you go like this. Anyway, we get to a certain turnabout. My son is driving, and he goes, instead of going straight, he goes to the left. The next thing we know, we're driving down a dirt road, heading towards an Arab village. We realize we're going the wrong way, and we start getting a little bit nervous. He pulls the car over and he stops. And I'm like, we have to turn around. We have to turn. He says, I know, but Tati, look, there's like a stream of Arabs that are just following behind us. So they all start driving past us. And suddenly, one of the cars starts honking his horn very loud. And we look and we see two Arabs sitting in the car. That's it. Shema Yisrael Hashem. I thought, Mamish, it's the end. And the Arab says, turn around. Turn around. You're going the wrong way. Okay, the righteous Arab of the world. Yeah. So we try to turn around. We can't. The cars keep coming. Suddenly, Mamish, out of nowhere, I'm telling you, it's like a scene in probably one of your Beis Yaakov plays. Suddenly, this gigantic pickup truck, white American pickup truck, comes rolling in next to us. The window rolls down. There's an American guy out of nowhere, and he says, you're going the wrong way. My son says, I know, I can't. He says, turn around. He says, I can't turn around. There's too many cars. The guy says, I'm stopping all of the traffic right now. Turn around. So we turn around, and then this big, humongous truck follows us for like the next 20 minutes. He's got a siren over his car, and to make sure that we get to where we have to go safely, and everybody stays away from us. We finally get to this moshav out in Shiloh, and we meet Yair, the farmer, holy Jew, settled the land. You know how they build these settlements over there. They go out to the West Bank. The land is empty. The Arabs claim that they own everything. But the Jews said, no, this land belongs to us. So they go like in the middle of the night, they put up like these domes and they start building homes. And when they finish building the home, they remove the dome, and now there's a home. And they do it again and again until there's like 100 homes in this place, and then they settle down on the land, and there's 100 families living over there. So they planted vineyards in this particular area. What did they do? The land is officially owned by the Arabs. But lahachis, to drive the Arabs crazy, they go and they plant on the land that the Arabs claim belongs to them, because they say, no, the land belongs to us. So they planted all of these vineyards. A dunam is about I think it's a quarter of an acre. Hundreds of dunams of vineyards. All on this land over there in Shiloh. And they're producing some of the best grapes in all of Eretz Yisrael for some of the wine that ends up on your Shabbos table. So as we're walking through the vineyards, so one of the Rabbanim from Keren Shvish that was with us, he says, look at the ground. And we look at the ground. He says, what do you see? Rocks, a lot of rocks. He says, do you think that you could plant a vineyard on rocky terrain? I said, that's a pretty good question. Why don't we just ask the farmer over here? He says, no. Do you think you could plant a vineyard on rocky terrain? So he said, the truth of the matter is rocky terrain is the worst place in the world that you could plant a vineyard. He said, but there's a pasuk in the Navi, I think he said in Yeshaya, that says that the Yidden will come back to Shiloh, and on the rocky terrain of Shiloh they're going to plant Kramim vineyards once again. So he said, how is it? So now the farmer takes over. And he says, how is it possible that you can plant vineyards on rocky terrain? How are the roots going to get down? So he said an amazing thing. He said they plant the vine, and the roots have to work very hard to break through all of the rock that is on the ground. And they go deep, deep, deep down under the surface into the soil. And they end up latching in a very strong and a powerful way to the nutrients and the mineral that's there in the soil. He said some of the strongest roots of any vineyard you'll find in Eretz Yisrael is right here, because they have to work so hard to get down. It was very cold that day. We're all wearing jackets. And so the farmer says, Zekar bachutz, it's very cold over here. He said, you think cold is good for vineyards? No, it's the worst thing in the world. Can make them freeze. So how do they grow over here in these frigid temperatures? So he said, when the vine feels the cold of the outside, so it has like an adrenaline rush on the inside, and it starts pumping out heat within inside of itself, and because of the inner heat that's inside of the vine, it allows the tree, the vine, to begin growing more and stronger and more robust than it was before. And the grapes that are produced in these vineyards, it's known in Eretz Yisrael, they are some of the best grapes that you could possibly find. So you have the roots that have to dig down deep underneath the soil, cutting through the rocks. And you have the inner warmth that it creates on the inside that needs to rush through in a very strong manner in order that they're not going to freeze, so that the grapes will grow plump and big and be able to survive the cold and the frigid temperatures that are there. So as Yair, the farmer, is telling us how the vineyard grows, I thought to myself, this is one of the greatest mashalim I ever heard in my entire life. How does a person grow in this world? Everybody would like to grow very easily. You know, they used to have this plant called chia pet. I don't even know if it's on the market anymore. Basically, you watered it at night, in the morning you woke up, you had a plant. It just grew like that. You take a tree, put it into the ground, you could watch that tree week after week after week after week, month after month, year after year. You could barely even notice that it's growing. It takes years for a tree to grow. How does a person grow in this world? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's only one way that you can actually grow. And that's if you have to work hard. Anyone that's growing easily, anyone that's going to higher levels in Ruchnias in an easy fashion, in a manner, that's not real growth. Real growth is when there's rocky terrain. Real growth is when the roots have to start bearing down through the soil and cutting through the rock with tremendous force and connecting themselves with the nutrients and the minerals and the life force that is down there. And when it gets cold, and when it gets harsh, and the conditions are not so easy and they're difficult, a person has to find within themselves the juices, the koichos, the potential, the abilities that they never knew that they had before, to allow them to continue to grow even when the weather outside, the spiritual weather, the nisyonos weather, whatever it might be, is overwhelming to a person. They find the strength and the ability inside of themselves to be able to overcome that and to grow. Rav Hirsch says, in the way that he learns the Hebrew grammar, he says that the word simcha, sin mem ches hey, is related to the word tzmicha, tzadi mem ches hey, which means tzemeach, to grow. How does a person achieve the midah of simcha, this trait of happiness and joy? The only way for a person to really be happy is if they are tzemeach, if they are growing. When a person is growing and they are steiging and they are elevating themselves, that is the real simcha, that is the real joy that a person is going to have in life. If you all just think back when you were in seminary not so long ago, I'm assuming that most everybody had an amazing experience. I'm assuming that. Not just because you got to go to amazing families and the like, and you saw Torah like you never saw before in America, and you saw the Kedusha on the streets, and you saw all the Tahara that was there by the Kaisel, by Keva Rachel, by the Kvarim that you went and you davened at. There's something very unique about being in seminary, being away from LA, being away from everything. A person is able to grow. They're able to spread their wings, they're able to bear down and be able to enroot themselves in the Kedushas HaTorah. They're able to study the works. And I think you learn more than the guys in yeshiva, actually. That's what it sounds like from all the homework that goes on over there. You're able to immerse yourself in the holy words of the Ramban, in the holy words of the Ramchal. You're able to go to mishpachas that you would never ever see any place else in the world besides Yerushalayim, Yer HaKodesh. To see how it's possible to fit 14 and a half children in a 1.5 bedroom house. And yet everybody sits at the table and they're happy and they're singing and they're rejoicing. How does it work? When you were in Eretz Yisrael, you all know that there was a certain level of growth that a person was doing, which is elevating and invigorating and inspiring, and a person feels so good about it. But guess what? That's not the ultimate smicha, that's not the ultimate growth in life. Many years ago, Rav Noach Orlowik told us over the following story. He said he used to be, I think, the mashkiach in the Chavetz Chaim Yeshiva in Sanhedrin Rechevet. And the Rosh Yeshiva from America, Rav Chanoich Leibowitz, was visiting. And there's a big, if anyone's ever been in the Beis Mikdash, there's a huge picture window that overlooks the beautiful city of Sanhedrin. And Rav Chanoich Leibowitz said to Rav Noach Orlowik, he says, "No, Rav Noach, come here for a minute." He says, "What do you see out there?" So Rav Noach Orlowik is looking. He sees a lot of kids going to cheder. He sees fathers with the Gemaras under their arms running off the kollel. Mothers, tzenua is doing their avodah. But as is the general principle, when you are in the presence of great people and they ask you a question, they don't really want to hear what you have to answer. They want you to hear what they have to answer. So even though Rav Noach Orlowik was a big person, he remained quiet. So Rav Chanoich Leibowitz said, "Rav Noach, you know what I see?" He said, "I see Olam Hazeh." He says, "Look at that world out there. Look at all those kinderlach going to cheder. Look at all those mothers, how tznius they are. Look at the fathers heading off to kollel. Look at what you see over there. That's Olam Hazeh. That's this world. This world cannot get any better than that. Over there in America, that's Olam Haba. That's the world to come. When you live in a place and you walk down, even in the holy city of La Brea, Hancock Park, how many cheder yingalach do you see walking to cheder every single day? How many boys do you see running off to yeshiva every day? How many avreichim there are 10 avreichim in the kollel. How many avreichim do you see in kollel every day? There's a lot of other things that we see around. Said Rav Leibowitz, that's Olam Haba. When you are in an environment where the ruchnius is not prime, when you're in an environment where the kedusha is concealed and it is hidden, when the tahara, when the purity of Klal Yisrael is struggling, when you're in that environment and you still find a way to grow and become a holy person, that's Olam Haba. That's the real growth of a person. Which means that as much as you grew in Eretz Yisrael as a gift, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a gift. He gave you a year to be able just to be focused on ruchnius, on growing, away from a lot of the foolishness that goes on in Los Angeles, California, and you were able to focus in on what is the ikar, what is important. But it's like handed to you on a silver platter. When you come back to LA, and there's a lot of stresses for a young lady that comes back from LA. There's like chasanas taking place on the plane on the way back. Shadchanim are going around making shidduchim. The boys from Brisk, they don't look, of course, they don't look to see who else is working, driving the traffic. I was driving home last night from a chasana, 11:30 at night. There's traffic on the freeway at 11:30 at night. That's stressful in and of itself. The billboards in Los Angeles, you have to poke out your eyes to walk down the streets over here these days. Even for a girl, a young lady who cares about her inner self, who cares about her precious neshama, who cares about being a bas melech, the billboards on the street just outside of these homes are dangerous to the spiritual constitution of who we are. There's messages, whether they're outright or they are subliminal, that are there trying to convince you what it means to be a lady. It's a dangerous world over here. But if here, let's forget about all the stress of shidduchim. Was one father told me, I'm just standing by the phone waiting for it to ring. Did it ring? No. He asked his wife, did you hear it ring? No, it didn't ring. Did you hear it? No, it didn't ring. It's stress. It's stress. It's pressure. If under the pressure you can grow, that is the greatest sign of someone that is going to be Sameach, is going to rejoice. The best grapes in all of Eretz Yisrael are the ones that are in the least likely place to be able to go and be strong. The best girls in all of America are in Los Angeles, California. Because it's the most least likely place where you're going to be able to raise B'nais Torah, Tzidkanios, and everything. But when a young lady buckles down and she realizes the opportunities that she has over here, and she sees all the rocks of impurities that are on the streets, and she feels the frigid air of the world that's blowing its winds against us all of the time, and she's strong, and she grows, so then you could actually grow here, believe it or not. I know it doesn't sound like it's true, but you could actually grow in Los Angeles, California, more than you grew in Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh. Don't tell the Menahelis of BJJ this, but it's true. You could grow more over here than you can grow over there. I'm not saying you shouldn't go back when you get married. You should go back when you get married. But right now, your avodah is to grow. And the way to grow is to recognize the harder that I work, the more I'm going to grow. I feel a little bit funny in such a hush of a crowd bringing this example, but I'll tell you the example anyway. Years and years ago, there was a movie. I don't know if anybody know what movies are. And it was called Superman. Okay, Superman. Well, I'm so sorry to bring this example over here. I hope I don't offend anybody. The star of that movie was a non-Jewish fellow. His name was Christopher Reeves. And he is known as Superman. There are pictures of him all over America flying in a cape, running around and saving all the people from destruction. So imagine you grow up, you become famous, and everybody knows you as Superman. You can do nothing wrong. You're invincible. He liked to ride equestrian horses. That was his hobby. He had a horse, he had a trainer, he entered into tournaments, and apparently he was quite good. One day he was in one of his tournaments with his equestrian horse, and he was riding over, I guess you ride over these hurdles, and he had practiced his hurdle many, many times before the event took place. And some mishap took place as he was jumping up over the hurdle, and he misjudged the height, and the horse, instead of going over the hurdle, ran into the hurdle in midair and threw him off of the back of the horse. And as he was flying through the air, he said he knew that he was in trouble. And when he landed. He was wearing a helmet, but when he landed on his head. And he said he was lying there on the ground, and he could not move, and he realized something very bad had just happened to him. And Superman became paraplegic. He broke his neck, and it was unfixable. They rushed him to the hospital, and he went through whatever they tried to do, surgeries and procedures, but he was left not being able, not just not to fly. He wasn't even able to walk anymore, nor move even his head and neck like this, couldn't even do. He was confined to a wheelchair. He got very depressed. Go from flying over mountains and tall story buildings. to suddenly you cannot even get out of bed by yourself in the morning. You cannot walk, you can't hold your children, you can't do anything. He got very depressed. And one night he told his wife, I'm done. I can't take this life anymore. I'm finished. My life is meaningless. It's worthless. So his wife was a superwoman. And she said, before you decide to check out, we're going to spend the whole night talking. We're going to go through all the pros and cons of what life is all about. And if at the end of the night you decide you want to end it all, I'll stand behind you. But if you decide that you want to go forward and you want to try to make it a worthwhile life to live, I'll stand behind you 110%. And so Superman and Superwoman stayed up the whole night and they went through all of the meaning of life and what God does and how He makes things happen and what's the purpose and what are we doing over here. And this is a challenge and how will we overcome? And as the sun was coming up in the morning and the Talmidim came in and said, No, Rabbeinu, it's time for Nates. He looked at his wife and he said, you just saved my life. I want to live. And he ended up being mechazik himself. And he changed his whole perspective, his whole outlook on life. And instead of lying around and feeling sorry for himself, he ended up going and building organizations and going around the world and speaking to paraplegics and becoming like a life coach and telling people, you could overcome, you could do, life is never too hard, anything is possible. You don't live very long when you're a paraplegic, Rahman al-Islam. And towards the end of his life, he had a very famous interview. And in this interview, the interviewer had the guts to ask him the following question. Which life was better? The life of Superman or the life of the paraplegic that you have right now? Which life was better? So he thought, and he said over the following words. He said, I would not wish this nisayon, I mean those were not the words that he used, I would not wish this challenge on anyone. But I could tell you one thing. The person that I was before the accident and the person that I am after the accident are two different people altogether. And he told this interviewer, I want you to know I am a much greater person as a result of the accident than I was before. The amount of introspection, the amount of self-growth that I had to do, the amount of chesed that I'm involved with, helping other people, thinking of others, being selfless, is so much greater than the selfish, arrogant person that I was before, chasing after fame and fortune. I'm a much better person now than I ever was before. When a person is thrust into challenges, when a person faces conflict, when a person faces difficulties, what does it make them have to do? It forces a person to grow under those circumstances. And you can never trade in the tzmicha, the growth that you will have under that pressure. And that itself brings a person to the ultimate simcha, to the ultimate joy in life. The Gemara says in Megillah, Chayiv inish libsume b'puria. A person is obligated, the simple explanation is to get intoxicated on Purim. Ad lo yada, until they don't know the difference between Baruch Mordechai v'Or Haman, between the blessed Mordechai and the cursed Haman. A person is obligated to inebriate themselves on Purim till they get to a point in their equilibrium where they cannot even tell the difference anymore between the tzaddik and the rasha. Is that really possible? If a person would be drunk as could possibly be, and the Chavetz Chaim and Adolf Hitler Yamach Shema walked into this room, they would not be able to tell the difference between the two. I don't care how drunk you are. Even these guys in the stretch limousines and the fancy costumes, no matter how drunk they are on Purim. If the Chavetz Chaim and Hitler were standing right in front of them, they would recognize the difference in a heartbeat. So what are Chazal saying? You have to get to a point in your drunkenness on Purim that if Mordechai and Haman were standing in front of you, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So the Nesivos, one of the great commentaries on the Megillah, says, the pshat in that Gemara is the following. Like Chazal tell us, Keshem shemevarchem ala toiv, just like a person has an obligation to make a bracha on the good, kach mevarchem ala ra, they have an obligation to make a bracha on the ra, on the bad that takes place as well. Says the Nesivos, if you look at the story of Purim, it's so concealed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name doesn't appear even once in the Megillah. Klal Yisrael is about to be destroyed and exterminated by Haman and Achashverosh. And we're supposed to never exist again after the whole episode will be over. And Klal Yisrael is thrust into mourning, they're thrust into tightness, into tshuva, into davening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it looks like we are in big trouble. But what happens at the end? At the end of the story, in the Hafachu, everything turns around. And everything which looked like it was so terrible for the Jewish people ends up being the siba, ends up being the cause for the greatest hatzlacha, the greatest success that our nation had known in hundreds of years. Until we get to the point, like it says in the Megillah, La Yehuda Ma'aseh v'Simcha, Sasan v'Yikar. The joy and the elevation and the happiness and the radiance of Klal Yisrael was like never before. Says in the Nesivos, you know what the pshat is? The pshat is that when you get drunk, you can begin to put things together that you never would before. You can begin to take down the barriers and the lines that are in the way of seeing things clearly. And very often in life we look at those challenging situations or the difficulties that we're going through as being a negative. Says in the Nesivos on Purim, you are able to see them as a positive. You're able to recognize that the things that go on in your life that you think are so challenging and so hard and so debilitating is actually the greatest chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do for you. Why? And the answer is because it's only through those situations. This is my nisayon right now. It's only through those situations. It's only through those situations that a person is going to truly be able to grow. Says the Nesivos, that's the miracle of Purim. The miracle of Purim is that you, inside of yourself, you could begin to realize that the things that you think are so hard and so difficult are actually the source of your greatest success in this world. The things that are pressing down on you, that's what makes the roots go deep into the ground. The winds of the world that are blowing, the lachats, the pressure of life, that's what brings out inside of you these feelings of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you will not get any other way. And that's the mitzvah if you're going to drink. I don't know that you're going to, but you can tell your brothers this as well. You can tell your fathers also. If they're going to drink, the mitzvah is when you get to the point to realize that everything that's happening in your life, it's all good. And the harder it is, the better it is. Because in there lies the secret of your ultimate growth and your ultimate success. Says the Gemara, Esther min ha-Torah minayin. How do we know Esther from the Torah? Where's the kedusha of this woman, of this whole Megillah, of the whole story of Purim? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will certainly hide my face from you. Every challenge is a moment where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hiding himself, concealing himself. But when a person works hard to find the Ribbono Shel Olam, to recognize that even in those moments that seem to be difficult, that's how I'm going to grow, that's how I'm going to become a greater person, then you have tzmicha, then you have growth, and when you're tzaimeach, when you are growing, that's when a person is happiest. Nobody's happy sitting on the couch like a potato. Nobody's happy when nothing's happening in their life. But when things are moving, when things are growing, when things are pushing you into situations where you have to make decisions and go inside of yourself to find what's the right thing to do, and you make the right choice, or you feel yourself under pressure with all the different things that are going on, and you overcome that, that is the tzmicha, that is the happiness and the joy that a person is going to have, and that's the revelry, that's the joy that we're going to have on Purim. When you get to Ad Yada, I cannot tell the difference anymore between what looks like to be good and what looks like to be bad. It's all good. And the worse it is, the better it is. We're not asking for bad, chas v'chalila. But the harder you have to work, right? I'm sure you all saw the t-shirt with the bicycle. And it says that if it's hard to pedal, that must mean that you're going uphill. If it's easy, it must mean that you're going down. And that's the mashal of life. If it's hard, that means you're moving up, because you're going up, up, up. If it's easy, so you're not moving any place. You're going like this. I want to leave you off with one Maisa, one of my favorite Purim Maisas of all time. I heard this story maybe almost close to 20 years ago from Rav Asher Zelig Rubenstein. Zeichet Tzadik Livrachi. He came to Ner Yisrael right before Purim, and he told us an amazing, amazing shir, and he ended off with this Maisa. He said there was a group of Chiloni Bachrim, Chiloni boys in Tel Aviv, and one of them, we'll call him, I think his name was Boaz, he started getting interested in Yiddishkeit. Little by little by little by little, he was getting interested. And he had a few friends, his chevra, and he said, why don't you come with me to a shir, come to for a Shabbos? And slowly but surely, there was a whole chevra of these young guys, totally irreligious, chiloni, that one by one they were getting enraptured in Yiddishkeit, and they started becoming Bali Tshuva. Purim was coming, and Boaz said, we have to have a Purim Suda, it's a big mitzvah. And they said, where are we going to make it? He said, you know what? We have a big salon in our house. He said, I'm going to speak to my father. My father's a very nice fellow. I'm going to ask if we can make the Suda in our house. He said, great. Now his father was a Seine Yadus, hated Yiddishkeit. And when his son Boaz started becoming religious, it was driving him crazy. And they would get in arguments and they would get in fights, and he kept trying to prove that his son was wrong and didn't know what he was doing. So his son comes and says, Abba, Purim is coming. We want to make a big Suda. All my friends want to come here for the meal. Could we use the house for the Suda? And the father right away says to himself, what a perfect opportunity. They're going to get drunk. When a guy gets drunk, he acts like a maniac. He's probably going to start talking shtusim v'avolim out of their mouth. I'm going to have a video camera. I'm going to video everything that they do to show them what fools and what animals they are. And then after Purim is over, I'll show them and say, you think you're such a holy Jew? You think Torah is really the way to go? Look who you really are. So he says, Betach, B'ni, my son, of course, sure. And all the liquor, it's on me. I'll provide you with everything. So Boaz is very excited. He tells all of his friends, come Purim Day, we're going to be here for the meal. And his father goes and he buys the best wine and the best vodka and the biggest cups that he could possibly find. And every one of the boys that comes into the house on Purim, he's the bartender, and he's just pouring one glass after another, and these guys are getting drunk as you could imagine. And they're around the table, and the father's got the video camera. He figures now it's going to happen. They're going to start saying things, probably cursing, doing all different things. I'm going to get them on video. And he's got his video camera. And the guys are getting a little bit rowdy. And then suddenly his son Boaz gets up. And his father's like, yes, here it comes. And Boaz says, Rabotai, I want to give everybody a bracha. He says, Baruch Hashem, we found Torah and mitzvot. Baruch Hashem, we're not on the streets anymore of Tel Aviv. Baruch Hashem, we know how good it is to be a Jew. I want to give us all a bracha. And the bracha is that we should continue to appreciate the value of Torah and mitzvahs. That we should continue to grow, that we should go to yeshiva, we should learn Torah, we should get married and raise beautiful mishpachot. It's not quite the scene the father was imagining. And suddenly Boaz tells everybody, stand! And everybody gets up and they put their arms around each other. And he starts singing, Hava vashreinu matoiv chelkeinu. A beautiful song about how precious our lot is, how fortunate we are to be a Jew. And all of these young guys who the father knew from their days on the streets of Tel Aviv, they're all standing around swaying back and forth, singing this song over and over and over again till the tears were streaming down their eyes. They were so happy to be a part of Klal Yisrael. And the father is watching in total disbelief. He shuts off the camera and he just can't believe his eyes. This is what a young man does when he's drunk. These are the great secrets that are inside of them. This is what they're doing, singing about how good it is to be a Jew. And the party goes on and on and on and on late into the night. The next day, the father comes to his son and he says, Beni, my dear child. He said, I want you to know what my kavanah was for this party. You know I'm not happy with you since you became religious. I grew up in a world where they told us religion is a very bad thing. Charedim are crazy. I can't even hear about anything religious. My own son is going to be Charedi? He's going to go to yeshiva and learn Torah? I can't believe such a thing. So I wanted to catch you yesterday in the act. I wanted to show you that you're really not as religious as you think. I thought I'll get you more and more drunk, you'll become inebriated, and you'll act like a wild man. But yesterday I saw something I've never seen in my life before. I saw a room full of neshamas. I saw a room full of young men that are happy with what they have. I saw a room full of people that are just happy to be a Jew. And I want you to know something. I'm jealous of you. All of my life I thought this religion was a joke. But yesterday I saw that it's for real. He said, please, I'm begging you, teach me what it means to be a Jew, so that I should have this simcha, I should have this joy as well. And so Boaz taught his father how to become a Baal Tshuva. And he grew in his mitzvahs, he grew in his Yiras Shamayim, and he grew in his simcha, in his joy. The source of all happiness in a person's life is not the externalities of what you have. It's not of where you are. It's not who's even in your life. The source of all simcha, of all joy, is when you are a person that is growing, when you are a person that is striving, when you are a person that is seeking and searching to try to unmask the Ribbono Shel Olam in this world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, you cannot see my panim, you cannot see my inner essence. Like the Nitziv says, you can't understand the complicated cheshbonos that I make in order to be able to create the world and do things in your life the way that I do. However, one thing you could understand, and that you can live with. If I brought things upon you, tzaddik v'raloi, it's all because I want you to grow. It's because I want you to become greater, and I want you to achieve levels of simcha, of joy, that you will never achieve any other way. If Superman could say that his life was exponentially greater after the accident than before the accident, then certainly the superwomen of Klal Yisrael, whatever nisyonos, whatever challenges, whatever we have to go through, it's all for us to say, my life is infinitely greater after the challenge that I overcame than before HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent that to me. And if we do that, we will be tzaimeach, we will grow, we will lift ourselves up, we will elevate ourselves, and then we will achieve what the whole world is running after, but they just can't seem to find it. We'll be able to find this ultimate joy, simcha, simcha like we've never ever known before. Mishenichnas other marbim besimcha. You have to increase. You increase what is already there. That means I'm sure that everybody's already holding on levels of simcha in their life. You have a chance to increase even more. If we would have had a regular year, it would have been over already. Purim would have been the other night. Hashem said, you know what? We'll give you another month. You have another month to work on the midah of simcha. By the time Purim comes along, you should just be dancing around uncontrollably. So happy with everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does. And when a person lives like that, then like Rav Leibowitz said to Rabbi Orlowik that time, over here, Los Angeles, California, it doesn't get any worse. Over here in Los Angeles, California, is the ultimate acquisition of Olam Haba. We should be Zaychim Yetz Hashem that through our efforts to increase our levels of simcha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bring us to the ultimate simcha, just like He did V'kimu V'kiblu, that there was a great revelation for Klal Yisrael in the times of Purim. We should be Zaycha to the great revelation, the ultimate simcha that Hashem wants to bring to Klal Yisrael with the Bias Goyal Tzedek B'meira V'yameinu. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's just so incredible how, we're so the best to have the Horowitz come and give us truth, because when you think about what the world is telling us about Simcha, it's like the exact opposite.